I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 132. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. All right. Well, we have a very special guest today on the podcast, everyone. Please welcome Valerie Trapunky. I don't say her last name as beautifully as she says it. So Valerie, hello. And can you say your name for everyone?
Melissa, thank you so much. Having an Eastern European background, I am used to all variations of my last name. You said it really well, actually. It's Trapunky.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I'm not even going to try because I definitely will butcher it.
You did a great job. You did a great job.
Well, thank you. Welcome to the Velocity Work Podcast. I am excited for people to get to know you a bit today because your company has made quite a difference in my life. And I've been talking to clients about it. And I actually have at least one client that I know of who also uses you. And so I'd love to jump in, maybe just right from the get-go. I do want to go back, but will you share with everyone what your company does for people? And I should also say, Valerie's company is Chatterboss. And many of you may have heard on Earn the Attorney's podcast. She was on with him. And then I heard that, went straight to chatterboss.com, got myself an account, got myself signed up, and I've been using you guys since. And so now I have some context to share. You are the brain behind Chatterboss.
So amazing. And I always say I'm so grateful for the connections when it is somebody that you mesh well with and you work well with. And then usually the kind of person that comes out of that, it's just like you are your network. It is just like such a mirror of who you are. So it's really exciting to be connected to the individuals that work with you because they're a reflection of you. Then they're amazing. And I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Give everybody, what is Chatterboss?
Chatterboss is a remote executive assistant service. We work with entrepreneurs and business owners. We started 5 years ago, and we have always specialized in supporting entrepreneurs and business owners. We feel that they have very unique and particular problems that we are solving for. And so we pair clients to a dedicated person. They are the ones that do a majority of the work. They're the ones that know them. They are the ones that they're interfacing with day to day. They become like a part of their team. But it's the second piece of it is that they're dedicated, but they're on demand. So you can work with the assistant as much or as little as you want. There is just a 5-hour a month minimum. But outside of that, if you need support for 5 hours one week, and then you need 40 hours the next week. The beauty in how we're set up is that your assistant also has a backup assistant. You also have an admin assistant on your team. So mostly everyone that works with us, everyone has at least 2 assistants, but we have clients that have 7 or 8 individuals on their teams. So it's like a plug and play, almost like a Tetris type approach to remote teams that are built around the dedicated virtual assistant who is like the right hand to the entrepreneur.
And there's things there that I would love to dig into. I would like, before we do that, I'm curious, and I know listeners will probably find this, everybody's journey is so fascinating. When did you have the idea for this business?
I worked as a personal assistant and a chief of staff to A-list celebrities, to high net worth individuals. I was in that role for over 5 years. And throughout that time, there were things that I discovered that I was really good at. And so it made me a kind of sought after PA and EA. And I was getting matched with really wonderful clients and how I got all of those opportunities. However, there were also pieces of the work that I was really not good at. things that for me that require a lot of consistency, things that are repetitive over and over again, the definition for some of the things that you're required to do as an EA or a PA. So for many years, I tried to mask that, hey, I'll never lose a detail. Yes, you can count on me to do all of these things, when it wasn't true. And it actually was interesting because individuals that I supported as a personal assistant that I found to be all of them that were successful, all of them had a 2-assistant model. They did not just have one personal or executive assistant. They had at least 2, some of them 3 or 4 at the same time. And so I found that as an assistant to be really cool. I was like, that's great. I could lean on this person to double check me, to proofread something just to make sure that I don't make an error. And at the same time, I could be that for the other assistant. Something requires some really strategic thinking. If something requires some like flexibility, this is where I shine and you can count on me on. When I started Chatterboss, it was it was still a challenge for me to be a personal assistant on my own. And so starting Chatterboss felt like inevitable. I had to do it. I knew what people needed at the highest kind of levels of success, what they needed from an executive assistant. I had a lot of passion for small businesses, for entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship as a whole. And I wanted to bring that two assistant model to entrepreneurs who I knew would be delighted and it would be so unexpected from them to get this kind of high quality service, because I think until then, virtual assistants, and for a very big part of it still now, virtual assistants is, I'm going to give my kind of like small projects that don't require a lot of thinking. And here we are changing kind of what that industry is, and that you can have assistants that are your thought partners and thought leaders within your business.
Yeah, this is so good. Okay, so when was that? When was the idea born for this?
2000. It was born a few years before I executed on it. Maybe a few years before, but 2016 is when we went live.
Okay. So some of my audience knows who Ari Meisel is. And I know Ernie's talked about Ari Meisel. Do you mind telling the story of how you met him?
Oh, absolutely. So Ari has been a mentor and a friend for a very long time, since the inception of my company. I was at NYU taking a course for entrepreneurs. I had the idea. I just didn't know how to put this idea together. I knew the service that I wanted to bring, but was extremely overwhelmed with the number of pieces that have to go into effect to build a business. And so I was in this entrepreneurship course at NYU, and they had Ari as a guest speaker. And it was, I'll say, he was really like sent from above for me in that moment, because it wasn't just that he is a genius in building processes and giving entrepreneurs a path to be building a business that's going to keep them healthy and sane from the onset. So that like idea of systems and replaceability, all of that is baked into his processes. But he also had a virtual assistant company before. So it was like the serendipity couldn't have worked in a more magical way. And he's been a mentor and a friend ever since, and just really grateful for him.
That's so great. Before we pushed record, you were sharing that it was like the day that you were like, I don't think this is going to work. I don't know. I can't see a way forward. And then that day he was there. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I was sitting there thinking, there are too many pieces. And this is overwhelming. And I don't think that I'm going to go through with it. And this is what I've learned since, right? This like cycle of like when your mind tells you stop, don't do it, is actually the moment where you have to go directly into that and you have to act on that. That happened to me when I was training for my marathon. 1 week before I was supposed to run the marathon, I was like, you know what? Valerie, what was your goal of running the marathon? It was to really train and be consistent in running. You accomplished that. So the goal was never the marathon. It was the training. So I think that you shouldn't run the marathon. Unbelievable how we're wired to do that. Like there's like no higher levels of like self-sabotage. So back then, I think that it was possible that I would have listened to this kind of conversation that was happening in my head, because I didn't know where it was coming from. Now, I know that you can't really trust that. And I really go into the things that I hear that about. So it was a really lucky kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everyone probably has moments, whether it's with business or not, but oftentimes business, where you can look back and see it almost seems like there's sparkles in the air around the moment. You didn't know
Yes.
it at the time, but when you look back, you're like, whoa, that was a big moment. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's so cool. When was that? When were you in that course and you decided, oh, okay, we can do this?
Yeah, it was probably 2016, like somewhere
Mm-hmm.
mid-year.
Okay, great. And so here we are almost 5, 6 years later. And describe your business now. How do you think about the business now? That was the idea. And we've heard what you guys do. How would you describe your business to another business owner?
I mean, I'm grateful, right? I think that I have so much gratitude. I know that the number of businesses that fail and don't make to see their first or second year anniversary, it's really rough being a startup. And on top of that, being bootstrapped. And so in the beginning of my journey, I really wanted to be in an accelerator. I wanted to get funding. This was all of the paths that I saw to success. But I was getting turned down, particularly for the reason that I was being told that you cannot, one, that you can't scale an assistant business, that you can't scale people. And the second thing that was coming up then that doesn't come up interestingly anymore now, but then it was, you know what, we think that AI is going to take over all of this kind of work. So we don't think that this is a good idea. Today, I feel so much gratitude, right? Because back then I would have given away 10% of my business for, I don't know, $10,000. And that would have been a huge limitation today. So growing and bootstrapping is challenging, but today I'm so grateful. And particularly, I think that I am lucky because the kind of business that I have, it's virtual assistants and on-demand talent. So what I was able to do always is flex that delegating muscles since the early beginning. There's always things in your business that you don't know how to do, that you don't want to do, that you're putting off from doing. And because I had access to a fleet of individuals always, I was able to see, okay, your gifts are here. I can't have you for 40 hours a week, but can you do this one thing for me for an hour? So as soon as I would earn enough to be able to put the money back into the business, I would put it back into investing in services from my own team. And it's been incredible. It was also a way for me to, not on purpose, but that's how I learned what makes a good assistant. Because I worked with almost every single person that was on my team up until maybe a year ago. Like I really got to try the different flavors and see how to delegate, how to hand off instructions, how people react, etc.
Yeah. So cool. Okay. I want to ask some questions about why, and from your perspective, you've watched so many business owners now use your services. And what are the biggest wins that you see, or what are the biggest benefits that people get by using your services? And I ask that knowing that an obvious one is they get their time back, they can focus on what they want to do. But they're having used your services, it's more than that, I think. I'm curious if you have opinions about really nuts and bolts. Like, why should someone do this other than the fact that they do get back more time, and which frees them up to use their brain for their genius work? And that will make them more money. That will do a lot of good in the world and for their own self. And maybe it stops there, but do you have anything else that you think of this is why people should invest in this?
I think that the biggest piece of it is with the way that we're set up. I almost look at it as like the full entrepreneurial system in one place. So I think that the biggest thing we do is, yes, we give you back your time, but the way that we do it is that I think a lot of the times where we get stuck on something in our business is because we don't know how to do it. And then what we end up doing is saying, okay, who can help me? Then you start reaching out to people. Then those people respond. They may or may not be a good match. All of this time, you are stuck in trying to figure out what is the solution. You don't act. And I can give a perfect example in your industry, right? Where Ernie helped me specifically, because everything related to anything legal, having a contract, everything, I had a ton of legal questions that were stopping my business from moving forward, from things related to trademarks, things related to contracts, employment agreements, etc. And so every time anything related to legal came up, I would be completely dead in my tracks because I had to go find an attorney with that specific specialty, and I would just get stuck, and then I just wouldn't do it. And then I would have things on the back burner for months and months, sometimes over a year. I had a conversation with Ernie, and what you need is a generalist who can then either they'll answer most of your questions, or they'll point you to the right specialist. And I was like, oh my God, one, I didn't know such a thing exists, but two, that's exactly our business model. You have one very strong generalist, and they'll either take care of 90% of the problems, or if there is something that they don't know how to do, that we have a huge resource. We have all of vendors that we've ever worked with. So let's say you say, I need to make an automated video. Great. I know the resource. If you need a logo made, if you're publishing a book and you need to know about self-publishing, you need ghostwriters. These are things that have been tried out with either I have tried them out personally, or one of our clients has tried one of these vendors or service providers personally. So I think it just stops you from second guessing, knowing that you're getting a good referral to keep yourself going on all of those tasks.
Right? Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. Okay, great. If it's okay with you, I'd like to share, at least from my memory, like the steps that it took for me to get integrated with you guys. And this is just for people who are listening so that you can see. I think sometimes when we see the map a little bit, then it's easier to jump in. And the reason I'm doing this is because I genuinely believe that most of the people that listen to this podcast should be using some sort of an assistant to help with their life, not just the business. I think many of my listeners are bent towards that. They've heard it over and over that they need an executive assistant in the business, or someone to handle certain things. And there's different levels within Chatterboss, which is great because you actually help figure out what type of an assistant they would need, which I think is immensely valuable. And so even if they have some of that set up in their own world, maybe it makes better sense for the business that they actually shift some of that to Chatterboss. I don't know, but I think it's worth checking out for sure. But the other reason I want to walk people through this, and the other reason I think everybody should do this, is because having a personal assistant, there's different ways you can do it, but having someone to help you with the life stuff that tees you up so that you can focus, like really sink in and focus once you do get to work. And that has changed my life. And I have heard people say that your first hire when you're lifting something off the ground, this isn't true for every business, but should be an assistant, period. Like someone to help with all the details. I don't disagree with that. But this idea of personal assistant gets pushed back from a lot of law firm owners that I come across, because it almost feels like such a luxury and almost not pretentious, but maybe some people think it's pretentious, but almost such a luxury that they're not there yet. I don't even know where there would be. And I don't think they do either, but they're not there yet. And I am lucky enough to have two of my very close friends have personal assistants, and they run so much behind the scenes for their life that it really helps keep their life smooth. And it doesn't take away from their life the things many people find value in doing things for themselves, making dinner and maybe doing some research online. I think people think that everything has to go away if you have a personal assistant and you're just served and teed up and you never have to do anything. You just bounce from here to here and it's all been coordinated perfectly. And so there's a little bit of, I think, resistance there too. But I see two people who have personal assistants full-time, and they're actually like in the ground in the same city. And that's the way they've done it. But they're able to be so much more present for their life that it struck me. And I've watched them now for a few years with these personal assistants. And at some point when my business and I started having revenue in the business where I get to make decisions, that to me was one of the first decisions that should be made because I've watched the value that it brings to someone's life. And I normally do not talk this much when I have a guest. Sorry. But I really do want to hit home that this is, and I want to know what you think before I share my steps. This is not about you being hoity-toity and getting an assistant. This is not that at all. And so I wanted to hear what you have to say or your thoughts as well. And I can go into the steps.
No, I love it. I love everything that you shared. And it's like the psychology of it, I think is very interesting. I was recently reading a forum about somebody said, hey, I need a VA for personal assistant things. And there was a lot of hate. Like there was a lot of, hey, can't you just do this on your own? Who do you think that you are? Like Jeff Bezos and all of this. And it was like, wow, cool. Because like hitting on what you're saying, people think this internally, but why? Because there is this perception from certain people. And I think it's your personal life as an entrepreneur, your personal life is exactly 50, maybe more of like your success in your business. Because if you're stressed at home, you're going to carry it over to your business. You're going to interact with people differently. You just show up differently for the people within your organization. And so I think that you're exactly right. Having a big focus on the personal thing is huge because that is how you're setting yourself up for success. If you're having a hard time getting in shape, you go to a trainer, and that is something that we're used to. And some people just go, even if they're not having a hard time, right? They're just in the habit of getting this kind of support. Same thing as with therapy, right? You may be in therapy to continue to work through the things that you have and work through the future things that will come up. So it's the same here. If on the personal side, things are constantly missed, right? You are not showing up for the people in your life in the way that you want to because you are prioritizing your business. That is definitely affecting your business, and it is stressing you out. And so obviously with consent, but we've worked with a lot of couples, for example, where we're supporting husband and wife. And as long as the individual knows, right? Or some people actually don't care who gets it done, right? But if you've promised like your wife that you're going to plan a trip and you're really bad at it, you're not going to do it. In my opinion, it is still care to figure out a way to get it done. So I think for some of us, the conditioning is if I don't do it myself, I am not a good husband. I'm not a good father. I'm not a good daughter. That's what that means. So I have to put in my own time to do these things. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. And it made me think even like it makes me think like the Sex and the City episode where Samantha receives a gift from Richard and she found out that it's from the personal assistant and it made her feel so upset. That's different, right? Because and kind of, we have a lot of those like anecdotes, right? Like in movies and just in our society where it's like the assistant in that case is the person is just saying, just get something. It doesn't have to be that way. If you're an active participant and when you're using a service like Chatterboss, you will have to be that it ends up being thoughtful and you get the end result, but you're not stressing yourself out and the other person gets what they need from you. So I think that it is clever to be able to come up with these kind of situations and then the needs of all parties are met.
Yes, I love that. By the way, when I was in my 20s, I was dating a guy that was super successful and he had a personal assistant. Well, actually, this is what he had. He did have an assistant, but I later saw in his closet, he had gifts lined up, ready to go to give the women he was dating. And he gave me one of those one day and I didn't find out till later it came off that shelf, but it was a perfume that smelled, it was a Givenchy perfume. It smelled like something my grandmother would have worn. And I was like, this is weird. Why did he think of me when he got this? Because I'm not going to wear it. This does not smell good. This is expensive, but no, thank you. And then I see it's like someone helped him tee up some gifts, right? And so it makes me think of the Sex and City thing where you get a gift and then you realize you were just the recipient of stock gifts.
Yes.
And that's not what we're talking about at all.
Yes, absolutely. And it's because the truth is when you are interacting with an assistant and you're using them for personal purposes, there is a lot of interaction. And then with time, they get to know you and they get to know your needs. And so I think that's actually another barrier to entry for people handing off personal things because anytime you delegate, there is a part of our brain that says, especially when you're new to delegating, is it's faster and easier to do it myself. And that's the truth in the first few tasks. It's actually faster and easier for you to do it yourself, but it is the investment that you're making over time. So is it the first time that you ask your assistant to book a flight for you? Yes, it's probably faster just to book your own flight. However, once you've spent time training a person on what are your preferences, where do you like to sit, what are the airlines, they have your frequent flyer number, they have your passport, they have all of that. The next time it's significantly easier. And so then you're able to unplug and actually be there with your families and really be present. I think that you mentioned that before. I think that it's really a gift that allows you, when you free up your time, you then choose how to use it. And if you're choosing to spend it then with your families and with your loved ones or whatever, writing your book or whatever it is that you're doing.
And even when I'm with clients, there's been times in the past where just the nature of how much is going on in life, something will hit me that I forgot to do or that doesn't really happen anymore. I have a regular meeting with Mariah as my assistant. I have a regular meeting with her to go through things. So nothing gets missed. It's just easy to be very present with whatever it is that I'm doing because ideas don't fly into my brain of, oh yeah. Or when I'm falling asleep at night, that's the other time they'll hit my brain. And that doesn't happen the way that it did before. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay. I'm glad you just shared everything you shared. I wanted to give people a taste of what it's like to really get integrated with you guys. And once I reached out, scheduled, I don't remember what you guys call them, but scheduled the first meeting. What's that called? The consult?
Yes, the consultation.
Yeah. And then it seems like there was a second call also.
Yes. So we do a consultation. That is where we get to know you. It's not this like standard, let us read off from like a list of like things that we can do. The goal of our consultation is to get to know you as an individual, you as a business owner, and understand what are the current needs. And then we brainstorm with you a little bit, or we'll tell you about how we can solve to those particular needs. Mm-hmm. Once somebody signs up, and a lot of the times a barrier to entry from consultation to getting started is that the person feels, or just getting started in general, is that the individual feels like I have to have everything perfect. I have to figure out how I'm going to hand everything off. And so I'm not going to get started before I know how to do that. And the truth is you're probably never going to know because it's not true, right? Some people, have their entire list of things, but for the most part, right? That's where they get stuck because they want it to be perfect. And it's hard when you've never done it, especially if you haven't done it for the first time. So then the next step is we have our pre-onboarding strategy call. So in preparation for that, the client has to fill out a questionnaire. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes. That's the only homework that individuals get before they get started with us. They don't have to do an entire huge data dump of everything that they've ever worked on or start to create diagrams, like to explain anything. They just fill out that questionnaire. From that questionnaire, we come prepared to that pre-onboarding strategy call. And we look at all of the tasks that you've mentioned, and we help you put those into priorities. So we say, hey, is this what you meant in terms of priorities? Then we work through that. And in the end of that call, we have a list of the first few tasks that the client is going to hand off, in addition to all of the rest of the projects, which we then create a roadmap out of. So we not only talk about which are the best tasks to hand off, but we guide you. This is how you hand off these first few tasks. This is what the assistant will need. So it's a step by step. The entrepreneur doesn't have to be overwhelmed. And we only start with one thing first. We really want to make sure that you guys create that good relationship and you're taking baby steps. Once you complete that strategy call, then you have a call to meet your assistant. And that is where you execute on where our strategy was in that initial conversation. So it is now your time to hand off that first task. And you've already had the guideline for how to do it. So that is the first step. And then after that, you see how that one task gets done. The assistant probably has a ton of questions. And then from there, you start layering on and building on more and more projects for the assistant to take on. And that's how you end up having this system in place the way that you have it now, that the moment you think of something, you know how to send it off. It doesn't create that anxiety feeling of what to do with it or what's the decision now that to do with this task or project.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yes. Okay. One thing that we have to touch on in there was there's an option to take the Optimax assessment.
Yes,
And
thank you for reminding me.
yeah, and so I did take it and I chose the option that actually meant that I would have a call with you after I took it so that you could walk through it with me. That was fascinating. I want to learn more. I'm going to have my team do it. We've talked about that a little bit in January. I'm going to. And so if you want to say something about that, like why did you decide to make that a part of it? What is it, et cetera?
Thank you. And I'm grateful for your
Oh, well,
memory.
it may not be an important detail for just generally sharing, but I loved it. So I wanted to bring it up.
Yes, it's such an important part. I can't believe that I missed it. So I'm really grateful that you brought it up. So before we pair you with an assistant, we give clients an option to do an advanced pairing, which means that they take this character assessment. And through the character assessment, we understand a full 360 of the individual's character, how they're going to best work, how they're going to communicate, what their needs are. We understand this through the assessment. Now, when we bring on assistants, we character assess all of them. So we already have that data. So if the client gives us an opportunity to do the advanced pairing, then we are pairing not just based on experience, but we are now also pairing based on character. So this gives us a significantly higher opportunity to make sure that the pairing is one that's going to work out for a long time. Because my theory with executive assistant support, because we are generalists, and I believe that we are the right hand to entrepreneurs, we can come in to solve pretty much any problem. So yes, we do look at the kind of experience that you need, the kind of software, the kind of background. That's all very important. But for me personally, more important than the skills that you have is how we're going to communicate. Are we going to like each other? Is my communication style going to stress you out? And is your communication style going to stress me out? Because even if you are the top expert in all of the things that I'm seeking for in my right hand, if we don't like to work together, that's going to be stressful. So I personally like to over-index on personality and character. And so that's the advanced pairing that we're able to offer. And for our clients that choose to, we can take it one step further, which is we do the character interpretation, which we did with you. And not only is that data used for the pairing, now that data is used for coaching with you. And so we are telling you, hey, this is your assistant. This is you. You're never going to have 100% compatibility with anyone, including your spouses. But it's so helpful to know, what can I expect? This is my strengths. This is my weaknesses. This is the person's strengths. This is the person's weaknesses. When I'm going to communicate, if I know this is your weakness, I'm not going to point into that weakness every time, because that is to be expected. For example, sometimes people are surprised. Like when I was saying earlier in this conversation that as an assistant, I had very particular strengths, but I had some weaknesses in terms of being detail oriented to certain things. I could have the ability to send my boss to the wrong area. He once arrived somewhere and didn't have a hotel booked because I booked it for the next night. So you can count on me. But if we were flying and he said, I'm landing here and we don't have landing permits, you can be rest assured that I'm the best person to solve this problem, because I can think fast. It doesn't stress me out. It excites me, these kind of changes. And if I know that I'm working with an assistant that is going to be very creative in their approach and solve for some of my problems on the fly and take my communication and not get stressed out, I have to also discount that person might have the ability to lose some details. And as long as I know that I'm not pointing at my finger at that saying something's wrong, right? That's expected. And vice versa. Sometimes I need a person that's exactly detail oriented, but then I cannot say, you know what, they're moving a little bit slow, right? They're not as quick to pick up on my train of thought, because we're just different. So as long as we know of each other's differences and accept them, then we have the ability to structure relationships that have significantly less friction and more harm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I love Optimax. And I'm pretty well versed in Colby Index. And you said you were too, but once you learned of Optimax, it was like next level and really helpful and useful for what you were trying to accomplish. So for any of you, and I know there's listeners that are familiar maybe with the Colby Index, and I got to meet him, the doctor behind it. He was
Yes.
in your waiting room as you and I were finishing up. And so you gave me the opportunity to ask him a couple questions before he left. His name is
Dr. Guy.
Dr. Guy.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He was so lovely.
He's the best. He's the cutest. He's the best. And he spent 30 years working on this assessment. He is the only remaining student of Professor Mazur, who was a Polish professor that came up with the theory of psychocybernetics and human behavior. And just fascinating to be able to learn from him, and extremely grateful to be able to share this kind of an assessment for our clients in this kind of a sophisticated way, because he's used this assessment when coaching Olympics, when helping to hire for Fortune 500 companies at the C-suite. So the fact that we have something like this that is available for pairing to clients and their assistants, I think from our side, it was a dream come true to have access to a tool like this, because of how important I think the executive assistant role is. I think it can make or break the way that you are running your business. And so, yeah, just very grateful. And I think just like a theme of this conversation for me so far is having the individuals as an entrepreneur in your network that you, like you said, those like aha moments that are like sparkling, right?
The sparkles. Yeah.
Yes. For me, they're always related to people, connecting with the individuals that understand you and are able to guide you. And hopefully you can reciprocate. For what I've learned is that for a lot of them, you actually can't reciprocate in the same way. You have to pay it forward to somebody else. But yeah, just been an incredible journey with the kind of brilliant people I've had an opportunity to work with. Very blessed.
Yeah, that was great. It was super insightful, very intense to take it. I don't know if you experienced the same thing, but I was like, geez, I was like, it really exhausts you a bit to take the assessment. And yeah, it was very interesting.
You know, people have said, make it shorter. Do not put people through this, give something that's fast. And so that's what we're used to, right? Instant gratification. And so when it comes to these assessments, the pushback from clients has been, you're asking for an hour. That's a lot. And I thought that would be pushback in that area, because these are busy entrepreneurs. They're hiring you to get back their time. And before you get back there, give them back their time, you're asking to take their time. But I think that if you look at it from the perspective of how many hours is it going to take me to train somebody? Okay. That doesn't happen instantly. It's a relationship you develop over time. So I'm not willing to give up an hour in the upfront, but I am willing to train somebody with whom there is higher risk of things not working out. So I think that's interesting for us to consider. And then second of all, right, when we're looking at tests that, someone said, hey, I just took something and it took 5 minutes and it spat something back out to me. I'm more likely to take that. And I said, great, right? If you meet somebody on the train and you say, and you sat on the train together for a few minutes, maybe you exchanged some words and you left, right? And then second of all, right, when we're looking at tests that someone said, hey, I just took something and it took 5 minutes and it spat something back out to me, I'm more likely to take that. And I said, great. If you meet somebody on the train and you say, and you sat on the train together for a few minutes, maybe you exchanged some words and you left, right? Versus if you have a best friend that you've known for the last 15 years, what amount of information can you share about your best friend versus the stranger on the train, right? The amount of effort that you put in terms of cultivating that relationship is the amount of information that you're going to get back. So a test that asks you some questions for 3 minutes, for 5 minutes, how much information do you think it was able to take from you versus an assessment that did take 45 minutes to an hour? I believe that is the equivalent of saying, I know this person for 15 years. I have so much information about them. I know how they're going to react, and I know the best way to work with them versus I'm not really getting much here.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And that, just to be clear to the listeners, that wasn't a complaint about that. It was surprising, but it wasn't a complaint. And I did know about how much time to expect. There's a time limit on certain sections of the test. So I was nervous at the end. I don't know what I was nervous about, but even seeing the results and learning how intellect is calculated, there's two components. And the one that doesn't sound as great or as smart is the one that I had a way higher score in. Memory. I think it's memory. Is that
Yes.
one of the components of intellect? My memory was off the charts. You actually asked me, did you write down the answers? I'm like, no, I didn't. That's just how it's always been like that for me. And then another one, I don't remember what was the memory and what is the other? Intelligence?
Yes. Or tolerance, persuadability, some of the other parameters.
Yeah. The way my intellect came out is okay.
This is why we do not send out the results of the assessment without doing an interpretation. And we push back from clients, right? They'll say, hey, I took my time. I did the assessment. I don't need you to interpret or coach me. Just send me my results. And we can't do that. And the reason for that is because still right now, the language that we are used to is from psychology. So there are certain things that when we read them on paper, even though the information that we're sharing is really clearly outlining like what the definitions are, we are triggered by anything related to intelligence. And so sometimes we see it, but we're seeing red because we say, okay, something low must be bad, something high must be good. Even though the information is in front of our eyes, we can't, I think that psychocybernetics is something that hasn't been shared publicly enough, and very few people still have understanding or knowledge of it. And so it's right now we're still in those stages where we're doing this like educational component. So I'm grateful for you bringing that up because again, when we're doing these pairings, it's extremely important. And we feel very privileged to be able to have clients trust us so that we are able to get this information about them for the purposes of these stronger matchings. Sometimes we have clients that forego it in the beginning because they're like, chop, chop, let's get to it. And then if something doesn't work out, that's when we bring it back a second time and we say, look, great, like we will repair you without it. However, we're choosing in the dark at this point. We don't know what's not working. We just know that something doesn't feel right, but we can't really 100% tell you what it is until we do that kind of an analysis. So
yeah, it's so cool. My other client that uses you guys, and he's okay if I share his name, Ben Hudson, and he also did the interpretation. We haven't talked in depth about it, but it was the same as like, if you don't have someone to interpret it, it looks harsh. But once you understand that it's looking at everything really together and like what pulls together to equal this and what pulls together to equal, it's so fascinating. Yeah. Okay. So that's Optimax and it's super cool. And I think everybody should opt in to do it because honestly, Mariah has been awesome. And that's probably something to do with you guys being able to pair really strongly for me and my needs. And then also for her and how she works. She's been awesome.
One thing, sorry, that you said, right? Like when you said, and for her, I think that traditionally in the virtual assistant space, but in general, in the service provider space, there is this feeling of if it works for me, me as the client, it works for you. So our relationship exists for as long as I choose for it to exist, me being the client. And so with Chatterboss, our model is built for co-creation and for collaboration. And so which if you asked me 5 years ago when you're building a business in this category, this is like this like unexpected thing that happened. In more cases, we have assistants that say can't continue on versus the clients. I always thought it would be the other way around. And usually for clients that sometimes that can come off as a critique of like how they are communicating, et cetera. But the truth is, and if we do have the ability to do that coaching, it's so not personal. It's just that there is not an alignment. And usually the assistance, because the person who's a service provider is on the side of the power play dynamic that can create a little bit more stress. That's just like natural in those kind of relationships. So they'll usually be a lot more tuned in to the stressors of the communication in the relationship versus a lot of the times the entrepreneur is just running really fast and may not catch on to it. So a lot of the times we find out that things aren't actually working so well for the client when the assistant identifies that they're feeling stressed. And it's nothing personal. It's not saying you as the client are stressing me out and you're a bad delegator, a bad person, et cetera. It's just that our communication styles do not mesh. And then we'll always look to bring in an individual with whom you do mesh. Because if you are going 1,000,000 miles a minute, you want to like you were saying, you just want to like get things out of your head and you want to do it fast. You don't want to watch your, of course, like when I say you don't have to watch your words, right? Assuming that everything is like respectful and all of that, right? You want to just communicate out what is happening for you and have the other person just receive it and understand you. And that's like when we're looking at the communication match. I think that we've all been in a situation where you mean one thing, but for the person, it means something different. So you're always like, wait, I didn't mean that. Actually, I'm so sorry. That's not what it actually, can you do it like this? And it's like, that's just hard. So I believe that the executive assistant, you have to have the most compatible match with to get your business and personal life running.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's exhausting to worry about how things are landing, where maybe it's because of Optimax. I like with Mariah, I don't have to think when I speak. It feels really natural to communicate to her, and it lands like sometimes better than I thought it was going to. So that's great. Okay. So yeah, once you have the calls that you mentioned, and then I got on the app. You guys have an app you're developing and you're still making improvements to it at the moment. And I can cut this out if you want me to say it, but at the moment we're using Voxer for the voice instead of the app because they were still working on it. And that's been great. It's just what's worked, but I really like the app. I'm pumped for when that gets fully developed and up to speed.
Me too.
Yeah.
And by the way, like with the Voxer piece, we encourage clients to communicate in the place that is like the most comfortable for them. And we have a lot of clients, they communicate in other ways to all other people in their lives, like over Voxer. So we want to always meet the entrepreneur where they are. The app has two features. One is that it provides the transparency factor. So if a lot of people are using it for the communication. If you aren't, that's still your portal to see your time tracking, how much time has been spent, how much in dollars you've spent this week so far. It also shows you which projects are being worked on, what are the deadlines, who's working on them, etc. So all of that is just at a glance. It's saying, okay, you're communicating with someone and you can always in the same breath have a look to see where everything is at. The other purpose of the communication in the app is that's where you have your backup assistant. So for clients communicating inside of the app, is where you have that two assistant model. The backup is able to step in. So if like something happens to your dedicated assistant, or like they're out, or like their meeting got held up and you need something urgently, the backup within the app will always respond within an hour, usually minutes. So that's even if you are, just for you as well to know, if you are communicating in Voxer, but something is happening, you need something like now. If you go into the app, that is where you have guaranteed responses. So someone will always.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I did choose. So my husband is also, we brought him into one. I have a chat just with Mariah, and then there's one with him in it so that he can be able to drop things there that need to be looked at or thought through or help with. And that's been great. I had Mariah put together a list of the kinds of things she's worked on for me. And so I thought I would share that with everybody here just to give you insight. Cause I did not know, I didn't have this list in my brain before I started. It was step by step, like building this out. And the first task that we worked on that came from the strategy call was building something. And we ended up doing it in Airtable where I can pass along to her an idea for content development. So an idea for a podcast or something I need to research so I can come up with some new content for members for it. There's just things that hit my brain that will really help. I need to do deep focus on, but I don't really have a good place for them. And I don't have a way to organize them or categorize them or tag them. And so she helped me set up that in Airtable. And that's been great. So if I have an idea for a guest or an episode or a new material I want to put into the strategic planning retreats, it all goes to her and she'll just place it into the Airtable and I can sort it and look at it in different ways. And it's like my brain, it's an external brain for me. So that was the first task. And from there, then we started figuring out, she helped me with getting a little more organized with my email. And then we started I would just try to pass her tasks just to see, is this going to work as a thing? And we've built up where now I'm pretty clear on what can be passed to her and what feels comfortable and good. And so it's been an evolution. I say that because I think, to your point, people think they need to know exactly what will be worked on and exactly like they need to have the blueprint for the assistant to execute on. And I never would have, just to your point earlier, I never would have gotten to that point. where then I felt like, okay, now I'm ready. I had to evolve with it. So yeah. Okay. So I could share some of those and I'd love to hear your feedback or if you think anything's funny. Or she has down here business functions and personal functions. And just to help everybody understand, she hasn't been involved inside of velocity work at all, but she's helped me with things on the periphery, like basically how to help support me inside of a little bit of work and then, but outside of work as well. And so that's why I think in my head, it's like, it feels like personal assistant because it's all about me. Mm-hmm. It's a weird sentence to say, but she does have them split up into business and personal. Email organization, which we use Superhuman, which I love. Calendar management. She is able to, like, she has access and can move or reschedule things, etc. General email correspondence, follow up with leads and inquiries, and introductions has been the thing that's been huge for her to take. For me is just teeing up the introduction email that's like the reply back and maybe getting them to schedule some time. That's been a big deal. Those just sat in my inbox embarrassingly long because I kept thinking, I will have time to get to this. It's just not today. Okay. So those are the business things that she has written. Any comments or thoughts?
I think when we're looking at some of at any task with us, like we will not shy away from automations, and you're using Superhuman. That's awesome. I've heard really good things about it. And so there are so many automations that are coming out constantly. And so that is excellent, right? If something is coming up that you're like, hey, my assistant used to do this, but now there's an automation. I can automate some of these things. I'm even thinking as like part of your external brain. My question is always whether to automate or keep it with a person is how you're utilizing it. So if it is just about the intake, if you just need a way to communicate that out for it to go somewhere, probably that piece of it can be automated, the input of it. However, what happens next after that, that is where most people want the personal touch and where you need a person that at the moment cannot. Probably someone has a way to automate it. But I think that when we're looking at what to do next, right? If I'm forming a relationship with you and I'm acting like a right hand and like a chief of staff for you, then I'm able to look at this list of ideas. Because somewhere I heard, right, like with entrepreneurs, you'll have 99 bad ideas, but one of them will be brilliant. And you don't want to dismiss not keeping track of all of your ideas because that one idea is really worth having this kind of an external brain, but making sure that you actually carve out the time. So where you can use an assistant is, do we have brainstorm meetings? Some people like myself, I need to brainstorm with others in order to be excited. I don't have this kind of a system, but I imagine that if I did, and I said, hey, I'm talking about having like Siri send it somewhere or whatever it is to be putting it into a project management system, I can almost guarantee you that my ideas would die there. I would not be disciplined enough to go back and actually look through them. So like the use for someone like myself would be, we get on a break, like we have a monthly, let's say 1 hour brainstorming session, and we look through all of the ideas and maybe we come up with a weighting system. And then maybe once we have a weighting system that we've brainstormed, now we automated that piece of it where the software ranks your ideas. And then we only focus on the top ones because we like to save us time. So those kind of things, like that's like really fun from what you mentioned. And then same with the email management. You can have so many automations, things bypassing your inbox, etc. But the things that do require a response and having somebody like field those things, or in your case, you're using her like client success, which is for me, was one of the most unexpected uses of Chatterboss, but one of the most popular uses is that I can communicate with the individuals, make sure that nothing is getting missed. Like maybe there's an invoice that's been sent a few times, maybe even if I'm not responsible for paying it, which as an assistant I should be, but at the very least I could say, hey, like we got this, right? Very important to communicate back to others. And then, like you said, you can continue layering on from there. So email is a really good one to get started with if you don't know where to start. If you are experiencing the problem of not getting back to people when they're in your inbox, because usually like we learn a lot about you and then we could say, oh, do you need help with this? Do you need help with this? So just the inbox alone.
Yes. Actually, one of the things I want to start doing more, I have a call with her today. So I'm going to pose this to her is there was a day, there may have been 2 sessions we did this during our meeting when she was just getting into the email. We were both looking at it together. And what was so helpful as she's trying to figure out, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? Just to go through and say, okay, I've got that. You take this. I've got that. You take this. And eventually we will need to do that less and less. But that was so helpful. We got through things that have been sitting, waiting for decisions by me, like back to July, I think. And it took 45 minutes, maybe. And it's just done and it's sorted. And it's such a good feeling to know that it's sorted. And yes, I have these things I need to do. So I will carve out time to do these things now, like to follow up or what it needs to be me. And then she can handle or organize or unsubscribe or whatever needs to happen with these other things. That was helpful just to have a facilitator for the thinking of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The personal stuff, the personal functions, creation of personal product ordering spreadsheet, which I could say more about that. Flight, hotel, Airbnb, restaurant booking for both personal, professional travel, shipping services, coordination. That I love. I hate shipping things. I hate going to stand in line. I'm sure there's a way that you don't have to go stand in line, but I've never taken the time to figure that out. Basically has accounts set up for me. If I need something shipped, she schedules a pickup. I set it outside my home. It's done. I never have to walk into one of those places again, which is fantastic. And even as simple as like, I ordered 2 sizes of something because I need to try it on. I'm going to have to ship that back. I don't want to go to the post office or whatever. And so she helps. I'm never going to have to do that.
And I love that you're bringing that up, because sometimes people start to calculate in terms of how long will it take for the assistance time? And then also how expensive was the product? And then they start to think, okay, either I'll do it myself or I just won't return it. And I think that as business owners, I think all of us in some way or another, we're trying to reduce waste, right? So I think sometimes there are these things, especially with personal tasks, that it doesn't make sense. If I have, I ordered accidentally matches that were $14.99. Why are they so expensive? So I needed, and they were in the site anyway. So I wanted to return them. So you could think, okay, how long will it take to have the conversation, all of this, get the label together, whatever. And so you might think, okay, this $14 that I'm saving is the $14 I'm going to spend on this task. And maybe I'm even going to spend $20 on the task. But for me personally, right, it's that let's pretend I'm not going to get rid of these matches. I'm not going to use an assistant to return them, but I'm also probably not going to do it myself as well. What's going to happen? They're going to sit on my desk every single day or wherever they are. I'm going to remember about them. It's an unfinished thing that I still have on my plate that I'm promising myself, and then maybe breaking the promise to myself. So that is like what, in those cases where you're feeling like really doesn't make sense monetarily, consider like the cost of just remembering about something. Like you said, I'm about to fall asleep. And again, those stupid matches, right? Like I can't fall asleep thinking about them, just getting that out of your head so that you can move on to the next thing.
Yeah, it's the little things that take up space. You aren't even aware are taking up space until I think for me, at least, until I started really going down this road, it was like, there is such a clarity and calm that comes with not having these tiny little things take up space in your brain, that even though it's not even that I need to remember to do it, it's just that here's another example. I don't know if she put it on here or not. I haven't read through the list yet all the way. The first day that I was assigned to her, we had talked, and this was the first day. I got a shipment of a couple of candles in the mail, and one of the candles, the glass jar was shattered. And I was angry. Like inside, I was like, not because I didn't get the candle. It's because when am I going to have time to deal with this? I probably am not going to. So I'm probably like, there's part of me that, this may sound ridiculous to some people, but convenience matters to me. And I will not take time out of my day to get on the phone with them or try to get a label, try to do all those things. So it's probably going to go in the trash, and I just wasted money, and I'm going to spend more money to get the candle because I really wanted the candle. That seems ridiculous. But I had this as I was staring at the broken glass. Are you freaking kidding me? Just what am I going to do with this? And I thought, I wonder if this is something she can do. I took a picture of the shipping label or the shipping, whatever confirmation, the packing sheet, took a picture of the broken candle from a few different angles, sent them in the app, and just said, wondering if I can get a refund or another one delivered because this is the way it showed up. And it was done. The next morning I woke up and she was like, yep, got that reordered. It'll be at your house next week. I was like, okay, that was amazing. What else can we do like that? So it is that it's the brain space. Like that would have eaten at me, like frustrated at myself for not just taking the time and carving out time to go to the UPS store or whatever I was going to need to do, or getting on the phone with them. So I would have been a little frustrated with myself because I'm just letting this thing sit around, or there wasn't a good solution for me dealing with that. Considering my life and considering my business and considering the priorities that I do have, it didn't make the cut. And now I don't have to let that stuff just be a waste anymore. Like now someone can help me with those things and the things stay clean in my life and the value is there in my life that I was paying for in the first place with that candle. And it's just a calmer, more peaceful way to go about the world, I guess. Yeah.
I love the way that you're explaining that. And as you were talking, I was like getting this image, like dishes in a sink, right? If your sink is empty and it's clean, when you have like the next cup or dish, whatever, you're more likely to wash it and just to put it away because you're like, it's already clean. But if it's already, I have a ton of dishes in my sink already. What's one more and what's one more? And it's this, at the end of the day, you're going to have to get to the bottom of it, whether it's now, whether it's tomorrow night, like it's going to happen. It's going to be more painful. And what you were saying made me think of the analogy that the way that you are working with your assistant is, okay, I'm dealing with things one thing at a time. And that there was this period of like, first there was like cleanup, right? Yes, there's a mess right now, but we're going to work together to clean it. But the magic is like when it's clean is, okay, something is coming in. I know where it's going out. Exactly.
Yes. Yes. That's so true. She also put on here appointment scheduling, doctor, hair, stuff like that. Yes. Birthday, Christmas gift brainstorming and reminders. I could share more about that. Childcare support. So organizing, like we have a nanny and there's certain days that she has off every year. And so we have to figure out, coordinate, are one of us going to not work or are we going to hire someone? So she organizes that schedule, make sure that all the days are covered that we want covered, create synopsis of personal podcasts to extract pertinent information, and daily check-ins and weekly calls. So the few things I feel like that people might find interesting, create synopsis of personal podcasts. I listened to a podcast that was centered around health, specifically neuro, like cognitive health. And this guy just went on was talking fast and listed all these like things that you can do or supplements you could try and take. And this is a big podcast too. I was so annoyed there were like no show notes, and we have had periods like that. And now I feel like that's terrible. You need show notes. So she listened to the show and created show notes for me and linked everything up so that I could go get the supplements if I wanted to. That was amazing. And so now I already do. This was just last week. Now I'm already taking 2 of the supplements and going to play around with these things. So that was something that was really helpful. And I shared that with my husband, and I'll share it with anybody who's listening. There's a James Altucher podcast with Ben Greenfield recently. And then creation of personal product ordering spreadsheet. That's cool. That's like the stuff that I always use, that I always re-up on. Some of it's shower wash or gel, and then some of it is diapers, right? Like the stuff that we always have to do. And I can just ping her to let her know, yep, we need this in this week ordered, and eventually I'm sure we'll evolve that to where she'll have a sense of when I'll need some of that. Some of it she's already scheduling auto ship if it's something that we need. So she's helping me think about how to automate things, but to actually see a spreadsheet full of the things that you use is crazy. With a link, it's a really great resource to have a look at. You're just unaware. You're really unaware of the things that really keep you going until you see it all in front of you, organized and linked up.
And I think it's such an interesting example because as you were talking, I was like I'm thinking, okay, can something here be automated? And I know that Amazon has like those buttons and then there's like the subscribe and all of that. But there's like the other piece of it where some of these are specialty items, but then I know for, some entrepreneurs, it's really important if I can buy directly from the small business owner, right? Then I'll do it. Then you're giving up that convenience that you're getting with Amazon. And I think that's why a lot of the times people don't end up, unfortunately, supporting small businesses because if you're time poor, you're running, and it's just it's an extra hassle. So this is like, I think it's a very creative way to, again, make that bridge of I stand for something and I want it to get accomplished. And in today's world, or in the moment right now, there's no easy way for me to get it. And so I can bridge a lot of that with assistance. And yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah. The other thing too, which for me is makeup. So reordering that, there's no shipment on auto ship on that stuff. Like I usually order through Sephora for most of the things. And that is something that there are days that'll go by. Oh yeah, I need to order that. Oh yeah, I need to order that. And now when I'm getting ready for the day and I realize it, I can just shoot her a message. And yeah, it's just so much. Things do not stay in my brain anymore. And that the value of that is crazy. Like I have more to give to work because there's not a portion of my brain reserved for thinking of these things. That's a big deal. And then the other spreadsheet is the gifting spreadsheet, which is, to your point, not impersonal. I basically have a list of people I want to buy gifts for Christmas. Sometimes I know exactly what the gift I want to get them is. She can look it up and make sure we're able to get it. And then sometimes I'm like, I want some ideas for this person that would be this and this, or this is what they love. And she can just present options. And it's super personal, me giving that gift to that person. I'm just teed up in a way that would have taken me truly maybe hours to research and figure things out. She can do a lot of that. Then it probably doesn't take her as long as it would take me. But
or if you're going to, I think like the other thing about to get to not have like that, like a shame, I think, or that feeling associated with gift is that you are thinking about the person always, I think a lot of the times in advance, but when you're actually executing, it's usually more last minute. At least I'm speaking for myself. So a lot of the times I end up with getting something less personal because I waited too long but the truth is I thought about you a month ago. If you're getting that support, then it's actually more love. It's more thoughtful because then you're in that process. Someone is helping you execute.
Yeah. And actually, even the way that you're ahead of the game. Like with all of the things that I've been talking about, you're ahead of the game. I don't run out of my shower soap now and then I have to order. None of that stuff happens now. When I'm getting low, I send a message and I just keep it in the cabinet until I need it. Or when I like all of those things that would require a watt or two of energy on a repeated basis daily because I would forget or whatever. It's, to me, at this stage of the game and at this age, I am just not willing to live like that anymore. That's how I lived like that for so long. It was all on me, taking care of myself and keeping everything dialed. And at some point, I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I have gifts. I have a way I want to spend my time. And it is not having to keep track of or getting on the phone with customer service or going to stand in line somewhere. Sure, sometimes I may have to do it in the future, but if I can reduce that greatly so that I can do and spend my time how I want to spend my time, that's worth money to me. And so, yeah, it's been such a gift. I realized there's periods of this where I talked a lot more than I thought that I would, but it's hopefully to share the value that your company has brought. And I think that there's owners that I work with whose businesses are technically bigger than mine and the revenue is bigger and they still don't have this for themselves. They still don't have this hole plugged. So
I think it's brilliant. Honestly, I think that it's brilliant. And I'm grateful that you are sharing in this way. I think that you have a knack for the way that you speak into someone's listening. I'm very grateful. I haven't had a conversation in a podcast before that went into this kind of a direction. So it's been really fun for me to have the chance to explore this with you, because the truth is, I haven't been in dialogue about this for a very long time because we're assistants for entrepreneurs. Yes, we always do the personal assistant work. We end up, for many of our entrepreneurs, I would have to look at the number, but a large number of them end up starting on the business side and it starts to bleed into the personal side. But I haven't had a conversation in a really long time where it was just like really focused on the benefits of that. And when I pull it out of my memory and my experience, like what I've been seeing with entrepreneurs use assistance in a personal way. I love the way that you framed all of it. So I'm grateful.
Well, I'm excited. Maybe next year we'll have to have another talk and I can tell you all the other things she's helping with now. We could talk through some of it. For anyone listening, our coaching group is called Mastery Group. And next year we have to figure out the dates, but Valerie's said that she would teach class, and we didn't even talk about processes today, but you're really process heavy and they document how they do things so that someone else could pick up if needed. And so you coming in to talk about processes and some other topics that will be really relevant to the groups. So that's a part of Mastery Group next year if you are in. So if you've been on the fence, these are the kinds of things we're bringing in so that you have resources to make headway in a meaningful way. Yeah, I really appreciate your time. I didn't ask you this beforehand, but could we give them a place to go if they listen to this and this was sparked the interest that they could go check you out?
Yes, absolutely. So they can go to chatterboss.com/velocitywork and they'll be able to see the special discount for the listeners of this show. We'd like to give them a little bit of something, and that's where they can explore all of the services.
That's cool. Thanks for doing that. I didn't talk to you about it before, so I thought maybe I missed the opportunity, but I'm glad you were ahead of the game. So thank you. Yeah. That's great.
I'll have an assistant put together now. Chatterboss velocity work.
That works, y'all.
But that's the beauty of it.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. So chatterboss.com/velocitywork. One word. Okay, That's perfect. All right, everybody, go get yourself an assistant for Christ's sake. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Hey there. If you enjoyed this podcast, I highly recommend you come and check out Mastery Group. It is where owner attorneys come together to study this material, apply it, and thus create really big results for their firm and for their life. So come on over, velocitywork.com/join to get more information and get started. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.